If you saw Cherry Jones float down the staircase in the Heiress, you remember the dress. If you think about Zoe Caldwell under the skin of Maria Callas in Masterclass, you picture the suit. Welcome to Women in Theater. I'm Linda Weiner, theater critic of Newsday. And our guest today is Jane Greenwood, who for decades has designed elegant, unforgettable costumes for much of the best of Broadway. She says she doesn't want audiences to come out singing her frocks, but we always do. Do you really want them to be invisible? I found so many quotes by you that says, oh, if I've done my job, you won't see them. Do you really mean that?
No.
No, good.
I mean that I want them to be so much a part of the whole piece that they're not really noticeable. But within the framework of the actors looking terrific, I would like to think that we managed to do that.
Well, so that basically you don't want it to be a costume show. So,
no.
Yeah, but it isn't. It usually isn't. You said one time that you have to fall in love with the director and the team during the process of creating the show. What happens when you don't?
Then it's not as easy.
Does it happen often, or?
No. I think I can say that there have been very few experiences when the director and I haven't really had a wonderful time together. And now, as I'm sort of at the point where I feel I know a lot of people quite well that I work with, the situation doesn't arise so much.
So you could be choosier now, huh?
Well, I wouldn't say choosier, but I know a lot of the people that I do work with now.
There was a time when you said you're a designer and a politician and the best friend and the psychiatrist of the actors, and another time that a costume fitting is like a confessional. This is very intimate, what you do with actors, isn't it?
Well, it is, because they have to bare their bodies, talk about their insecurities. You are sometimes giving them something which they're unfamiliar with. Period plays, they don't always know quite the format of the clothes. I think that can be a little daunting. Corsets are always a new experience.
How was Cherry Jones with her corset in the Heiress?
She was fine. She was a little amazed at first.
I couldn't breathe. She was obviously breathing. Yeah.
But she was fine. And it was very interesting because at the first fitting we had a muslin for one of her dresses, and we had lots of bits and pieces all over it, and we put the muslin on, and then slowly and surely I took all the little bits off, and we sort of got back down to a very simple basic dress. She was very interested that seeing her I could go and change something which was originally the idea for the design. But once you see the actor in the garment, it begins to make you think again another step further about what is necessary. And I think very often you do that. You start off with an idea of what you think the character should be, but then when you have the actress in the dress, you begin to see how that character is going to develop with that particular person. And I think it's very important to go with that flow.
How many shows do you do a year? I found some story where you had 5 going on simultaneously. I think it was in '98 or something.
Well, sometimes I say yes, and then I think, oh yes, and then I'm do another, and it all, one show goes a week earlier and one goes a week later, and it all gets a bit confused, you know, into the one time slot. But I find that you just have to concentrate on what you're working on. I always have very good help. I have good assistants. I'm very fortunate. I teach at Yale, and I feel that the development of my students is very helped by coming and working with me for a year or two when they come.
Then they come to New York and work with you. What a treat for them.
And, well, and it's a great treat for me. I mean, there's something wonderful about having young people around who are really exciting and creative and really have their finger on the pulse. And so it's very much a two-way street. I mean... So
you learn things from them about contemporary...
Absolutely.
You've been teaching at Yale for...
29 years.
Wow. You go every Wednesday?
Yes. You do?
Early in the morning?
Yes.
Yes. Are there now, is there a Jane Greenwood style that in some ways is being passed on? Do you have some idea of what you're passing on to students, or is it an ethic?
Well, it's a philosophy.
Which is?
Which is to look hard and know the piece. Know the play, know the characters. You can't design unless you really know who people are and what the piece is about and what the concept for the piece is about, so that you have to really know the script well before you can even begin to pick up the pencil. And to have had a dialogue with the director, I think, is wonderful, to be able to really develop as a group, and the other designers.
Are there times when you read the play, you have a very, very clear idea what it's supposed to look like, you meet with the director and the rest of the design team and find out that you're odd man out, and do you have to stay? Once you sign the contract, are you in?
Well, I'm not sure that you sign the contract until you're sure you want to be in.
Yeah, yeah. You do a lot of research.
Yes.
A lot of research.
Yes.
Much more than my finding out that you leave on Wednesday mornings. That year that you were doing 5 at the same time, it's not just that you were doing 5. One was the Scarlet Pimpernel, so your French Revolution, and one was Honor.
Yes,
and so
with Jane Alexander and Laura Linney.
And Laura Linney, and then there was a 50s English play, Deep Blue Sea, something like that.
Yes, Mark Lamos directed for the Roundabout.
And there was, let's see, High Society in the 30s, so you were doing 30s, and there was one more, but whatever it is, how do you possibly, Ballyhoo, The Last Night of Ballyhoo, so that's 30s Atlanta. And I know, like, when I was learning languages, when I spoke Spanish, I didn't speak French. If you start thinking that. Is that what it's like?
Yes, you sort of put yourself into where it is you're thinking about. And, some things get designed earlier. Some things you're doing it up to the wire. I guess it's all in juggling your time carefully.
What's the most fun you ever had working?
The most fun? I always say that the next play is the most fun, or the next piece. I think
not the last one, but the next one, right?
It's the anticipation.
Yeah.
And the going to do the work, and the finding out, and the investigation of those people, and the opera, or the dance piece, or whatever it is. I mean, it is the challenge of what you're going to do next. That's exciting. So you just leave these things for us to remember, and you're on to the next one. Do you? A little bit. I do find that when I'm in the costume shop and the clothes are being made, I feel very in control. And I can go and look at them on the dress form, and I can push things around a little bit, and I can look at the silhouette, and then I can look at the silhouette and see the clothes in the fitting room on the actor. But once they go to the stage, they become theirs, and they take on another life. And I think you have to, sort of in a funny way, let go of them because they do become part of the actor.
Oh, sure.
And part of the piece.
Now, okay, in Masterclass, for example, you began with Zoe Caldwell in her Chanel.
Yeah.
And then you had to redesign for Patti LuPone.
Patti LuPone, and for Faye
Dunaway on the road.
She went on the road, and Dixie Carter went into.
Right, came into Broadway, that's right.
Yes.
So how much did you have to rethink it?
Well, it was always going to be striking suit. And
it was a black Chanel suit.
Well, it was a black suit.
Chanel-esque, yes.
We actually went to Chanel with Zoe, but then Faye wanted to have hers made. Patti, I think we went to Chanel for Patti too. Yes, and then with Dixie Carter, she wanted to go to Valentino. We went to various places.
And you actually buy those suits, or you... So you buy off the rack. You go to Saks.
Very often, yes. I spend a lot of time.
You know, we think about you up in your loft, you know, waiting for the muse to, you know, land on your shoulders.
But I think with modern clothes, you know, you are dressing characters who buy modern clothes. And sometimes if you make them, they sort of don't look quite right. They sort of have a simplicity pattern, home dressmaking. I mean, I'm not saying that's true all the time, but there is something wonderful about being able to have a variety of clothes and sort of see, when you have a rack of suits, for instance, what really works for that actress in that role.
And
I mean, it's not, people think it's not designing, you know, if you go, but you see, you are making the choice.
You're selecting.
And you're being selective.
You know, if Andy Warhol said the soup can is art, the soup can is art, right? Then you also go to thrift shops.
Oh, yes, yes. All the time, finding odd pieces and storing them away like squirrel nutkin.
And do these things, do they last? Can they endure 8 performances a week? And
not necessarily.
Yeah.
But you might use it as something to copy if it's a period piece.
Yeah.
Or if it's a modern piece that you've bought from a thrift shop. I mean, it can last. It can last for a certain amount of time.
You have the greatest line about dry cleaning. You said you don't want them to dry clean it because it takes all the joy out of the fabric. I'm going to constantly be thinking, shall I clean that? It's going to take the joy out of the fabric.
Well, I'm sure that the dry cleaners don't want to hear that, but I do feel that...
It's non-profit TV. We can do that.
You don't really need to clean clothes as much as people think, because they can have something underneath to protect. I mean, in the days before the dry cleaners, you know, people wore shirts and underwear and coats and suits and dresses were not dry cleaned or washed.
Now, you told me right before we began that the next show that you're working on is the John Lennon musical?
Yes.
And you're from Liverpool.
Yes. And I said to Don Scardino, well,
the director?
Yes. Yeah. He's directing it, he's writing, he's putting the musical together. And I said, well, this is one piece that I am going to put my name in the pot for. I thought it was sort of coming full circle.
So now with something like that, how much research then do you have to do, or is it just in your blood?
Same old research.
Okay.
Back to the books, back to the photographs, finding front and back views of things. It's almost like detective work, and deciding what is the essence. What is the essence of each period to use? You know, the Beatles wore so many clothes. Yeah. And although he was only with them for 7 years, and this is about his life, it's still interesting to look at the photographs and realize how many clothes they had and how many things that they were photographed.
How many styles they established.
Yes, absolutely. And I wonder if they ever wore anything twice.
So there you were in Liverpool, really dressing up little dollies? Is that how it started, dressing dollies?
Well, it started in Wales. I was evacuated.
Oh, okay.
And I had my grandmother was with me, and she was a wonderful dressmaker. And I did have these little dolls, and they all had very individual characters, and I would ask her, I mean, I was very good even in those days of asking people to do things in the way of making clothes, and I would explain how I wanted them to be made, and we spent hours together with these little dolls. They were little tiny dolls.
And then did you do little plays for them, or did they have personality?
Oh, well,
did they have backstory?
We had long sort of conversations about what they were doing and where they were going and what they needed these clothes for.
And so then it was a natural jump from there to the Central School of Arts and Crafts in London. Arts and Crafts, it sounds like you're making potholders.
Yes, it does sound
It's a really
odd.
bad, really horrible name. So the Central School of Arts and Crafts, where you went in London.
They had a theatre design program.
Okay.
And I was very fortunate, actually, that I went there because very key people in the costume world were teaching there then. One of them was Nora Waugh, who wrote several books.
The petticoat woman,
yes,
the crinoline
that's
petticoat
right.
woman. Yeah.
Corsets and crinolines.
Yeah.
And Margaret Woodward was there, and Pegaret Anthony. They were all people who had a great, great tradition of clothing to bring to us all. And I really felt that that's where I had the foundation of where I've gone on from.
Why did you go to Canada?
Tanya Mazevich was designing there, and I had met her.
At Stratford?
No, I met her actually at Oxford Playhouse. She had gone there first when she was a designer, and I went there to work. And she came to see a show that actually Desmond Healy had designed there. And I'd been working on it with him. And she said, "Would you like to come to Canada? I'm at the Shakespeare Theatre in Stratford, Ontario, which Sir Tyrone Guthrie was still directing there. And I thought it was a great thrill to be asked to go there.
But did you still think you were going to go back to
Yes,
London?
I did. I went back. I came for the season. It was very, very nervous-making. You know, in those days, you came on the boat, came on a Cunard liner from Liverpool, arrived in New York and went to Penn Station before it was pulled down and got on the train.
The good one. You went to
Yep,
the good one?
Good one. Went to Toronto, and then got on another train and went to Stratford.
Yeah.
And by the time I got there, I thought, oh my goodness, am I going to be good enough for this? Am I going to be able to do this job? It's such a long way to come, 5 days, 6 days.
When you got to New York, 3 seasons later, I have read 3 different stories on how you met your husband, Ben Edwards, set designer, and costumes. One of them is that you met him in the Poconos. One of them is you met him while you were both working on the Sad Cafe, Ballad of the Sad Cafe. And the other was that Ann Roth, the costume designer, was using his apartment and there was a fire. How'd you meet?
3rd time's a winner.
Okay, all right.
I met Ben the night his apartment burned down.
Okay.
And it was quite an extraordinary evening. Everybody kept stopping by. It was a 5-alarm fire on 20th Street.
This was Chelsea before Chelsea was hot
Chelsea
stuff.
before Chelsea
Yes.
was Chelsea,
Yeah.
yes. And it was 8th Avenue and 20th. And I had just moved into an apartment opposite. And I'd met Anne, and we had become friends, and I knew that she had a studio in Ben's apartment. And when the fire alarm came, the fire trucks came, I called Anne and said, "Your friend's house is on fire. You better come over." And she came over. Lewis Allen, who was driving up 8th Avenue,
Producer.
stopped,
Yeah.
yes. And the fire people said, "Oh, they're all going up to that apartment up there." And it was 10 degrees below zero, snow. And finally, Ben came back. He was found had been to the Madison Square Garden to the ball game, and Louis saw him on the street when he went back uptown.
And the two of you, now you don't work together very often. You both,
we didn't, no.
No, but you did at the first. You did the Sad
Well,
Cafe.
he was producing Ballad of the
Okay.
Sad Cafe. You know the old story, if you want to get a job, get to know the producer.
Good work, very good work. And two daughters, both of them, you've done something right. They're both
In the business.
in costuming.
Yes. Sarah, my eldest daughter, has just finished designing the clothes for Sidney Pollack's movie, The Interpreter. And Kate is a wardrobe supervisor, and she works very often with Sarah. She just finished on The Interpreter, and now she's gone down to New Orleans to do a movie with Gary Jones.
What happened to Rebellion? Weren't they supposed to rebel against
Well,
the two of you? And
we sent them off to college thinking they would go and learn to do something quite smart and not get into this mad business.
you worked with Joe Papp at the Public Theater for a long time. A short time.
Sure, yes.
A medium time.
I didn't do many plays there. But
You
I
did the Linda Ronstadt Bohème.
Yes, I did, and Plenty with David
Plenty.
Hare,
You did the
and Map of the World.
And Map of the World. And then The Knife. You did the
And the knife,
The
yes, you see,
notorious
so
knife.
I say I did,
Yes.
but I did. And Othello with Christopher Walken.
And Raul Julia, yeah.
And Raul.
In the park.
Yeah.
Is that weird? I always look at the people in costumes in the park and think they must be dying from the heat.
Well, it cools off in the evening.
All right. I won't feel sorry for them anymore. All right. You also work a lot for Lincoln Center Theater.
Yes, yes, I've done many productions there.
How important is it to have a sense of place? Because people don't. So many artists in this country, you know, because there are not, certainly in New York, that many companies that you can continue to do work and have a tradition with.
Well, it is wonderful
yeah.
to have that, and I feel very much that I have that.
You did the Delicate Balance
with
with them, Importance, the Man of No Importance, the wonderful musical
Yes,
that
yes.
didn't get appreciated.
Yes.
Also, I know we have here what's called your Bible.
Yes.
This is, and if we could look at it, this is for the Belle Epoque. This is for the
Yes,
Martha Clark.
That was for the last show that I did at Lincoln
yes.
Center, yes.
And do you want to take me a little bit through the process briefly,
Surely,
just to
surely.
say, okay, you've worked with Martha Clark a number of times before. You know she's a very visual theater dance person. You
Right.
obviously understand each other. So you read this, whatever script it is, which isn't that much of a script. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's more of an image thing, right?
Right.
Okay.
And then I look at research, particularly of Toulouse-Lautrec.
Sure.
Picture of him, and then here's a sketch, and then this book is always useful for a designer to have, with the measurements of the actor and the fabrics, and very often we have a photograph that's taken in the fitting room.
The costumes were gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. You know, you have the all these fabric swatches, the swatches, the costume sketches.
And now this exists, this book will exist should, well, in her case, there won't be someone else who wants to do Belle Epoque. She would be doing, you know, Martha Clark would do Belle Epoque somewhere else. It isn't as if another director would do it and then want to use your Bible. This is a kind of...
No. I think this would always be
always
with Martha.
belong to Martha Clark.
Yes, yes. But you see, it's very good to have a record of this, particularly if a show is going to run for a long time. And you'd have the fabrics and where everything came from, and very often there's a fitting seeing
wonderful picture.
Seeing how the muslins look in the studio.
Yeah.
And with this actress, I remember she said, "Oh, I've got to be on the floor. I have to lie on the floor and do all these things." So we put her on the floor and made her do whatever it was she had to do in the costume, so that she would feel that it was going to work.
Well, so much of this that's about movement also.
Yes.
But you, actors are so self-conscious about themselves, their bodies. And I'm wondering, you also have designed for opera.
Yes.
Are opera singers as conscious as theater actors about how they look in costumes? Or just no generalization?
I think that there's a much more awareness of the singer in opera today than when I first started many years ago. And I really think that there is a look for the opera singers that is becoming more aware of what the actor, what the character should look like.
So I guess you did Pavarotti, designed Pavarotti, but at that point, I mean, towards the end, he was just, bringing in his own clothes, right? It must be difficult to deal with that.
I think that must have been hard.
Yeah.
I worked with him when he was just starting.
I can't believe our time is running out. And it's been just wonderful to talk to you. I wish we could do this for a long time. And I've admired your work for so long. Jane Greenwood, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here. On behalf of the League of Professional Theater Women, I'm Linda Weiner, and this has been Women in Theater.